Okay, we are now live.
Okay. Okay, this is the December 15th meeting of the Redevelopment Commission. Want to welcome a couple of our guests, John O'Toole and Charlie Stone. First order of business is to approve the minutes from our last meeting in November that went out in an email a little while ago. If you had a chance to review them, go ahead and make a motion, somebody, and
I make a motion to accept the minutes of last meeting.
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Well, as I said, we're welcoming John O'Toole and Charlie Stone of the Beaufort County Economic Development Corporation to talk to us a little bit about what's happening in Beaufort, in Port Royal, and how the favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oh, somebody's got somebody in the background. And how we can proceed as a commission to help Port Royal go forward in its work, as well as looking at ideas for growth and where we're headed. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to John and Charlie. John, you're muted.
That.
There.
Sorry. Yeah, just to give you a little bit of an update. And, you know, today our theme is to communicate better with communities. I'm sure Van could attest to that. But getting into that, I appreciate being with you. I think I had mentioned, and Bernadette and I discussed it when she invited me to the meeting. But you know, our mission is to diversify the economy in Beaufort County, and it's kind of interesting because each community within Beaufort County is like very, very different from the other. And I think I probably maybe mentioned this to some of you. I feel like the father of four kids that have nothing in common in a way, yet they're all in Beaufort County. And so Hilton Head, Bluffton, Port Royal, Beaufort, all very different from each other. You know, one of the things that to date, Charlie and I, and Charlie Stone is our senior project manager, does a great job kind of creating a brand of taking good care of companies. And we can tell you about Perrin Woodworking going into a Port Royal, being a company that kind of is a test to the great care that Charlie gives companies coming in. So we've done 38 little projects. And we do our work being very mindful of the environment. And so to date, we've done about $172 million in projects, creating over 650 jobs and retaining 174. Out on Robert Small's Parkway, we have, or highway, we have stoneworks going into the old Lee distribution building, a pretty good example, again, of how we took care of a company that could have been in a really a disappointed mood as they were being told by Hilton Head Airport that they had to move due to airport expansion. And so we were able to work with both Hilton Head and Port Royal to get them situated out there. And the building looks better. It's increasingly getting occupied. And across all those jobs, we also look at what we do in terms of the average pay. And so if you look at the median pay across Beaufort County, we're exceeding that. This 650 plus jobs that we've brought in are paying over $45,000. But you know, as we see the area grow, and I think we mentioned it last time, Charlie always reminds me that the community that you know has highest upside as we look at things is Port Royal. But as we do that, and we're seeing companies like the Perrins, like Glasswork that went into Beaufort, they're moving out of Charleston because our area reminds them of what they liked about Charleston 30 years ago. So as we're plugging in projects, and even on the county council, there are times where people ask us, well, you need a mega site and we need to bring in a big corporation. But I believe, regardless of the differences between the four communities and the unincorporated area, our success is going to come from small companies that we plug in. And again, as I look at Beaufort County, there are like 6 important spokes. And as you do your work, and maybe we continue this conversation, and Charlie and I would be happy to attend any and all of your meetings if you'd like. But as we look at it, the environment has to be number one as we do any of our work, whether it's your board or our board. Education, maintaining quality education in the county allows us to attract people to the area. Economic development and kind of diversifying the economy. I mean, there were talks earlier this year, and I think they're worth taking serious. I don't think they're imminent, but you know, if we ever had a what do you call it, a BRAC or military restructuring, that's why we want to have a diverse economy, so that all of our eggs aren't in one basket. Workforce development, then housing and transportation need to be the 6 spokes. So if I go through it one more time: environment, education, economic development, workforce development, housing, and then transportation are the areas that we think our 2 groups could work on together. As we look at economic development, there are some that are encouraging us to look at the green spaces in the county. But our premise is built on infrastructure-oriented development. So you look at where you have infrastructure, and certainly with the moves that Port Royal has made over time to create a TIF. And we think, the property, I'll call it controlled by Gray Ghost right now. We've watched the dialogue with town council and the developers there. We'd like to sink our teeth into some portion of that project and work with your group to market it, work with town council to more aggressively market components of that. And I know there have been stumbling blocks with DHEC and different, OCRM and the use of important components of that development. But we think we could work with the developer and your committee to attract the right kind of developments. And then last thing I'll tell you, and you're probably concerned, oh my gosh, we thought this was a meeting that was going to last less than a day. I'm not going to go on much longer. But in Port Royal, County Council has again asked us to try to develop a site plan, and we have identified different sites in Port Royal where we'll ask County Council to spend some money. One parcel in particular is zoned light industrial, and we'll work with County Council to include that in our plan, and we believe we can bring some diverse jobs into Port Royal, and we're working with Linda and Van to kind of identify that. There's also been, I guess, a hotel site out near Paris Island to look at developing that. And then the other important, or probably the most pivotal piece of property is all of the property that Gray Ghost has under its control. And then as we look at different properties on Robert Smalls and even Rebo Road, there might be a way to either enhance or get more companies more landowners to take advantage of your facade improvement program. So those are our thoughts going in, but I do think we'll be communicating with County Council. Our board hasn't seen our product report, but there would be parcels and developers in town that we'd like to work with to bring some businesses diverse businesses, and Perrin might be a great example. Perrin Woodworking might be a great example of what we could expect to see in Port Royal. And you piece a lot of those little projects together. And Charlie, I'll ask Charlie to take himself off mute because he'll have the exact numbers. But by doing 38 little projects, we're close to inking. I would say by the end of our fiscal year, we might be close to, and so we'd be about 3.5 years into this. We would have inked about $250 million in projects. And just looking at that one large project we have out there, Charlie, we'd probably add another 200 jobs. So we'd be close to 1,000 jobs over those 2.5 years. And I'll just ask Charlie to update you on the actual jobs, because I've been fudging it a little by saying over 650 and 179. So Charlie.
Yeah, we're at I believe we're at 658 as far as newly created jobs, and then 176 million in capital investment. So jobs, John's fudging it was pretty accurate there. But I think it really does have a upside, and a community that we look at, and we think it certainly has a lot of potential to attract more projects similar to the Perrin Woodworking project. And as we look at Port Royal, I think that that really stick out to just the quality of life of a coastal community, and then also just the fact that you have personalized service with the town, and we like to think of ourselves as kind of an extension of that whenever we're working with companies that are looking at Port Royal and the county. So,
John, when you and I spoke, you were talking about targeting some areas and trying to do things that kept the flavor of Port Royal in mind, because it is such a unique community, and keeping the peninsula area, I call it the main part, Paris Avenue area. We wanted to develop and be utilized in an appropriate manner, but we don't want to overrun it. And there's so many other areas that are in the queue for growth, in particular the area over towards 170.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I believe, again, you get into Gray Ghost property, but as the town speaking to them, and we've had conversations with them, is to get that, kind of get that comprehensive plan built out, and then understand what components of it that we could help market. It's interesting because on our board, and I could get myself in trouble with some of my board members. Different towns are interested in a lot of light industry, but we are getting pressure from Hilton Head to look at some of its underutilized commercial places and try to get those opportunities in front of investors. Similarly, and Bernadette and I spoke, and Charlie and I have visited with some hotel investors, that might put something, in the Gray Ghost development that might actually be more water facing than increasing the traffic, through your town. Hopefully, if people did come in on boats and yachts and that kind of thing, they would find the walkability of that corridor very attractive. So I think there is something we could do there. It was kind of unfortunate, but it was also a good exercise. The State Department of Commerce spent about $20,000. They gave us a grant, but they kind of told us how to spend it, and they had a site selector come down here. But unfortunately, they were focused towards manufacturing, and I don't know that other than niche manufacturing, like we're seeing a bourbon distiller going into Bluffton, so it's kind of a tourist attraction as well as a functioning bourbon distillery. So we do think supply to food chain could be an interesting fit. but it really have to be kind of niche and maybe have a kind of a attraction for walkability and people who would want to stop in, maybe see how furniture is made, maybe see how I think Nick Bourgine's Salt Marsh Brewery is probably a good example of that. You know, that it can be attractive to somebody on a Friday, Saturday night, but also that there would be an underlying development of a product there as well, which my board's always concerned about being a real contributor. We look at a lot of retail as just a recycler of cash, whereas like Nick's project is going to be a creator of wealth.
One thing that I know that with a marina, and I know Ginny can attest to the need for this, if there's a marina that is developed, you're going to need in close proximity a grocery store that's going to cater to you know, a bit of a higher end market. And you know, where could we find a place for something like that to go in that would fit this area and be walkable from a marina, be something that, you know, you'd pull people in from downtown Beaufort, that type of thing. And is, you know, is that something that we could look for?
You know, I wouldn't be an expert on it, but I certainly could have thoughts on it. You know, I've seen where fish market, so they could actually be taking fish in from the water side, but they might quite possibly just be a distributor of fish. I've seen where fish markets end up creating a real destination. So it's not a full-blown Piggly Wiggly or
Right.
a Food Lion, but you know, the fish market. And Van and Kevin may have thoughts on this as well, but the town does have some insurance proceeds that, you know, if we look at a project we're doing in Bluffton right now, one we did with the county where they had utility tax credits, if you identify what and so you have a source of funds, and then we kind of use those funds to incentivize a developer or development along the lines of what you're looking for. But you know, one of the problems that we have, you know, with, and I got to be careful not to keep saying Gray Goose, but with Gray Ghost is just figuring out what portion of their comprehensive plan, which we really haven't seen yet, we can market to, you know, it has a stated purpose and would fit within our range to kind of attract a business. So the first thing we need is what we call product, but it's the particular site, and then to be in sync with the community on what they'd like to see there. And then we can go about marketing it. We work with lead generators. We work with traditional and social media to try to get our message out. But if we have a site and we have a purpose, an intended use, we're pretty good at hitting the mark.
At our last meeting, WIT did bring out the plans that they're looking at for doing they're building there between Fish Camp and where Nick's building is going to be for the for the brewery. And what that would look like, that would include a downstairs shrimp processing. Not sure it would be big enough to have a market in there as well, you know, like a little grocery type market. But have you seen those plans? Or
we have not. I haven't. Have you, Charlie?
No, I have not.
We haven't.
Hey, John.
Yes.
So you said earlier, so y'all do have a site plan developed?
No, we don't.
Okay.
We have a product report, I think, is what Kevin's.
Okay. Yeah.
As I said earlier, you spoke on, I didn't know if you had actually had a plan where, you know, different areas were kind of zoned or either like on your radar or places that you were keeping an eye on or you thought would be good for commercial development. So.
Yeah, not really commercial development, but we do have you know, we've been working with Linda and Van, and there is a nearly 18-acre site that's zoned for light industrial that we'd probably look to either get an option on or look to work with county council to purchase. And quite honestly, we're looking for about 30 acres, and our plan is to find that dispersed in Port Royal. That was our target. And so we've asked each of the communities to identify areas that we might be able to bring diverse industry in. So we do have one, it's 17.8 acres that we're focused in on, and have spoken to the broker. And if we had the funds, we would probably try to secure that to establish a little commerce park, if you will, or a commerce area within Port Royal.
So what would be the types of businesses that you envision would find that attractive?
I'll let Charlie describe the profile of a small company he's working with out of New Jersey. Would probably be the type of facilities we could see siting out there. So
yeah, so the property that John's referring to is zoned for light industrial, and the companies that we would picture at this parcel would be similar to what you see at Stoneworks that located at Robert Smalls Parkway. Also very similar to what we have going in at the Beaufort Commerce Park currently, a company out of New Jersey that's going to build a 15,000 square foot manufacturing facility. And they're manufacturing glass components for the electronics industry. So small to mid-sized firms that are environmentally friendly, that are in the manufacturing sectors, and that are offering good wages.
Charlie, why don't you also describe maybe the prospect we're working out of Indiana, the ultraviolet light manufacturer, but they'd be low profile, low impact type industries. But
yeah, so this company out of Indiana, they manufacture ultraviolet lights for the healthcare industry. So basically, these lights would sanitize healthcare rooms, clean rooms. They also are actually used in production facilities, and they're looking for about 5,000 to 10,000 square feet. So we think that's kind of the sweet spot, about 5,000 to 25,000 square foot facilities.
And to put Charlie on the spot, Charlie, the determining factor on where he would locate his business is?
It's quality of life. So he actually lives in the Okatee area in Beaufort County.
So that's kind of the profile of who we find are people who like the area because it's beautiful. They tend to have a second home here and and just so you know, this ultraviolet light guy has been doing it for better than 35 years. So this isn't a flash in the pan COVID type business, but he's in love with the area and would like to have a portion of his business down here. He'd actually like to have a research and development operation in Beaufort County. And we tend to, because of the beauty of the area, because people find us as a second home or a vacation, these closely held people are ideal prospects for us.
So other than the fact that he lives here, and he thinks that the quality of life is good, would he be looking for new workforce, or would he be looking for relocating some of his existing workforce?
It would be all, in his case, it would be all new workforce. The gentleman out of New Jersey, I think he envisions maybe 1 or 2 people from New Jersey coming down with him. This would be, key people who understood his business. But he's, in most cases, the other trigger that we find are people who love America and love the prospects of retired Marines or their families and our native population here as well. People who've grown up in Beaufort County. So it's that combination of the quality of life they enjoy, and then the idea that each year we have 2,100 exiting Marines through this county. So an employer here has first crack at those individuals.
And the gentleman out of New Jersey, his facility is going to have 26 jobs. So 2 of those would be relocating from New Jersey, and then the rest would be new hire.
So the research and development that the ultraviolet light people are looking for, where would those prospects come from? Do we have training that would be attractive for them to take advantage of?
All he needs are people who are good with their hands. So he could find them in Beaufort County. We can find them exiting the Marines. It's not like R&D on a COVID vaccine. It's a little bit more of somebody who can fabricate steel or metal, I should say, fabricate metal into a shape and prove out whether the technology works. So it's more of a practical application of his theories is what he'd like to prove out here. So, and Charlie, why don't you explain the JobsEQ tool you use when people are looking for talent?
Yeah, so we do have a few manufacturing companies existing in the county that, they're not completely similar, but one is in Beaufort and they manufacture atmosphere monitoring systems. And then we have another Beaufort manufacturer that manufactures dust suppression systems. So a similar company in terms of the sector, and they've both been able to find workforce. And whenever we're recruiting companies, we have a system called JobsEQ where we can run a workforce profile that can show them how many candidates they can expect per position. So, and we also work closely with the Technical College of the Lowcountry, of course, and Ready SC at the state level to make sure that whenever a company's coming in, they can find the employees that they need. And if they need a customized training program, Ready SC and TCL can certainly build that out.
So do you guys have, changing the topic just a little bit, as far as keeping companies existing in Port Royal, have you done any kind of survey to see what the issues have been or are perceived to be as to why companies or existing businesses either move on or go somewhere else?
Yeah, we actually do 2 things. Our board asks us to meet with 50 companies a year, and we're largely meeting with manufacturers. But in addition to that, we work with the Beaufort Regional Chamber of Commerce, to a lesser degree, the Black Chamber of Commerce. We also get involved with the Bluffton and Hilton Head Bluffton Chambers of Commerce. But what we have done throughout COVID is to survey businesses, membership of all these organizations. We also have a list of 700 business individuals that we survey. So throughout this year, I would say, and I don't have it in front of me, I could pull up our dashboard, but we have probably done 6 different surveys just throughout this year where we can track what's happening with business confidence, what's happening with employees and so on. So we do a series of surveys through the year. If the year didn't involve COVID, last year we had a conference in January where we had 428 people signed up. I would imagine about 400 actually attended, but I believe we're doing our best to keep in touch with them through the surveys. When we release surveys, we're getting anywhere from 125 to 185 different responses. So I think we're getting a pretty good picture of it. And if you like, at a subsequent meeting, we can kind of show you what's happening with business trends. I don't know that we have it dissected down to north of the Broad, south of the Broad. We just have it across Beaufort County, but we'd be happy to share those results. And if you like, we can send you our last report on the survey, and you can have that individually, and we could discuss it. Interestingly enough, it's a tough year, but I have been surprised how confident businesses have been. I was also surprised that the October unemployment report for Beaufort County showed unemployment at 3.2%. Now, we kind of recognize within that there are people who are underemployed. And so we're always trying to create a scenario where people who live in your community and throughout the county could conceivably work in one job and take care of their family versus having to work 2 or 3.
Yeah, I would like to see the results because on our commission, we've talked about doing a survey of our own, but if we have the survey already done, I don't know, would it be advantageous? I guess this is where we might work together to have Port Royal specific data somehow. You said yours was kind of Beaufort County in general, but.
Right. I don't know if
Helpful.
there's a big enough pool to get enough information, but if you wanted to put something out to your residents, we'd be happy to facilitate that, or something out to your businesses. If you have a business list, we'd be happy to include your questions in the survey or make it specifically your survey. You know, it might help you identify businesses that people, you know, and it might help with Zuber and Chris Butler identify what they need to recruit into their comprehensive plan if they have commercial spots.
Yeah, because we're specifically looking for what could we as the town do to you know, facilitate, make people happier so that they stay here, or bring friends, family, new businesses to Port Royal. And I think we would need some guidance on, you know, existing kinds of questions to ask, or take advantage of what you've done already, and then add to it to see if we could get more specifics for Port Royal itself.
We'd be happy to initiate a sketch of what we think a survey might include, and then it would only benefit from your input on what else you'd want to learn.
Okay.
And then
good.
checking with your business licenses, we could start there, but we could also use social media, invite residents, and we could actually distinguish the results from your business community versus what your residents are looking for.
That'd be great. So when can we do that?
Oh gosh, I would suggest after the new year.
Okay.
And if let's see, today is the 15th. So I would say if we come up with a sketch and at your next monthly meeting, we agree on what we're asking, we can, and you have your list, we could probably commence it. I would say, let's just say January 20th.
Okay.
And then we
I'm
can
speaking just for myself here. I haven't, I think this is one of the things that we talked about doing. Am I correct?
You and I have.
Well, at our last meeting, Roger had mentioned that he wanted to see, was wondering if a Survey Monkey would help us get some information. So trying to get this gathered together would be helpful.
Yeah, I'd hate to have to reinvent the wheel if the wheel already exists, right? You know, and we would just need to add our Port Royal flavor to it somehow and target our existing businesses that we have. And we have a business list. And they're divided by category, you know, whatever that's standard across the nation category of businesses are.
So, John, you're saying you could have something, a framework together by our next meeting is January 19th.
Yeah, we'll probably do something in the next week, and it's just a Word document, and it's not going to be brain surgery, right? And so you can eat or rocket science, but you can just add what your committee wants to learn, and then we can pull it off for you. We'll have our marketing guy put your stamp on it. It'll be all Port Royal. And it'll have, you know, and it can have an introductory email from your chair, and we can get that out, or from the mayor, however you decide
Right,
to
right.
do it. But it'll be all yours. We'd just be happy to facilitate it for you.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Yeah, that would be really helpful.
And something you may want to do for the town council or for other boards and commission, if they're, you don't want to make it too long. I think Charlie and I have tried to keep it, to about 10 or 11 questions. Is that fair to say, Charlie? And people can get through it quickly, but you get good information.
I know when I get surveys that go on, I tend to say, I'll get to this later and never get back to it. So I would agree with you on the length.
Yeah, I think
So the
3 to.
steps we would go
Oh,
through
sure.
is, the steps we would go through is you'd provide us kind of an outline of what you have done, or kind of the questions that you think would be helpful. We would look at those, and we would probably need to get town council's approval to, do this, I imagine, right? I'm asking the question.
Van, or I would expect that Van's gonna say yes and on that one. He's here, but he's he's either muted himself and doesn't realize it. Kevin, is that something we'd have to get council approval on, do you think? I'm thinking we would.
I don't know if you would need like a council approval as in a vote or anything. I'm sure we would want to discuss it if it's going to go out through the town social media, then we kind of want to talk to everybody about that.
Sure.
I don't see why anybody would have any objections at all, but yeah.
Well, you have a mechanism for doing that, right? To get it out, we would just simply say that we would be using your mechanism.
Well, we're gonna craft it, but yeah, we'd use the town mechanism for distribution.
Oh, you would, okay.
Yeah, that's not an issue.
Okay. Thanks, Van.
Van, just a simple question. How many business licensees do you have?
Off the top of my head, I don't know.
Okay.
1,000.
Okay, then we got a pretty good, and this way, that information, you kind of control that. We won't do anything with any list or anything like that. It'll be all driven by you. We'll just help you with the back end, the design and implementation, and all the data will be yours.
Sounds good. Sounds very good. And you said that you could have something out to us in a week or so, and then we can review.
Yeah, we'll have a sketch out, and then because you're going to bring it to town council, I think you all could put your input into it, and then there might be something that town council wants to ask that you don't know about and I don't know about. So
Sure. Yeah.
But
And you should have a significantly reduced list based if you're looking to only survey the businesses that are physically located in Port Royal.
Yeah.
And we would probably not, you tell me, I don't know what percentage, but a number of them are short-term rental property owners, right? And probably wouldn't want to include them unless there's specific questions regarding processes that the town does relative to short-term rentals, like paying accommodation taxes and stuff like that.
What we could do is use the bigger list and allow everyone to participate, but we can have them distinguish themselves as a resident, a part-time resident, a business located in town, or a business located out of town. And so we'd be able to hopefully using the device or the survey, what would you call that? Partition the results based on who's answering this survey.
We could break it down by sector as well. So whether they're food and beverage or hotel versus office, manufacturing.
When you do a survey that has 10 or 11 questions, how do you determine, because you're sending that out to businesses, but what about residents and what kind of businesses they want? Like Bernadette mentioned the grocery store. You know, we have 1 or 2 grocery stores. We're getting the Publix over in Beaufort, in addition to the Publix on Ladies Island. But are there other businesses, or how do you determine things like transportation requirements, you know, the public transportation that makes it easier for people to get jobs? I'm kind of all over the board here, but I'm just trying to figure out how do you figure out what makes it easier for people to do business in any locality? Is that another survey that you do, or?
Well, it's quite possible you do a survey here, and instead of answering all your questions, it leads to more questions. So we may have to do a follow-up survey as well. But we'll try to make a note of these, and then with the brainstorming that'll occur before we actually publish and start soliciting responses, we'll try to have as an informed and concise a survey as we can. But it could lead to more questions.
Okay.
I think we're going to find that a lot of the questions that you're asking, Virginia, are probably already included in a lot of survey work that's being done by the local chambers of commerce. And as a matter of fact, you know, we just discussed they have a legislative agenda and a local agenda of things that they would like to see. And obviously one of the recurring themes is regulation and bureaucracy and all of the above. So I imagine we're probably going to hear the same answers. But if you're looking for something specific to Port Royal, that can figure it out.
So how do we find out what the results from the Regional Chamber of Commerce and so forth are?
Those on their website. But I think that's for you normally, yeah.
If you would like, we'd be happy to coordinate our effort with Ian Scott, you know, before we kick it over to you.
Okay.
Okay, well, and I think we've got some direction now to go in as far as, you know, how do we, as a commission, help determine the direction to go in with all of its work? And this survey might provide some insight, and I think that's a great idea, and look forward to getting it. If you can send me an email with information, you've got my email address, and then I can forward it on to the group and get everybody on board, and Van and Kevin as well.
That'd be great.
No, and I love that y'all are getting on it so quickly. That's great. It's a great to get that out the start of 2021.
Because 2021 has got to be a better year.
Amen. Amen.
By the way, I did go out to your website that you have, that was in one of the invitations that we got. And I was impressed with the maps that you have. I thought that was great to have, you know, a little interactive way of seeing where the airports and the ports and the railroads and all that sort of stuff. I don't know what I'm going to do with that information, but I thought it was cool.
Well, I'll let Charlie update you because he's been working on a new website and some of the things we expect to accomplish.
So we're reworking our website right now, so it should only get better. But we think we're going to have some pretty interactive pages for the properties that we're looking at marketing, as well as the sites, and it's really going to epitomize our brand. And you see our brand behind you: good for your business, good for your soul. And we featured the Port Royal shrimp boats.
That's not just today. That's not just today, but that's every day.
That is all the time. Yep.
Yes. Yeah. That's our if you look at our PowerPoint, every time we do a PowerPoint, this Port Royal slides, the second slide we show. I should say this too, within the new website, we're going to have a more robust data website built into our website. And hopefully that would help your group as well. As we're talking to investors on why Port Royal, they'll be able to get very granular as to within a 15-30-minute ride of each location, what the workforce would be, what the marketplace is, what the access to the market is. So it should be better. And then what we're hoping to gain is, right now we have our website with another group, but we'll be able to track who's hitting on it. And it may be the sort of thing, as you look at our website develop, you want a hot link to what you're doing, and then we can kind of the data mining part of websites actually track who's clicking on Port Royal 5 or 12 times is usually a good prospect for us. And so that's what we're hoping to gain, is a much better insight into our prospects through an improved website.
Right.
Our
That sounds
website
good.
does have those kind of analytics. We can see, we haven't taken advantage of it yet, but there is a whole bunch of analytics that says, how many times people have clicked in and where they've gone and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we're behind you there, and we know a lot of people are looking at our material, but we kind of rely on another group. We're not getting that data today, but by the end of December, Charlie, we shall. Cool.
You do have a really nice website. I just wish there was more Port Royal on it.
We'll get there. We'll get there. And you're, we really do welcome your critical thoughts on anything you see out of us. I don't need to tell Van to do that, but when we miss the mark, we want to hear about it so we can get better. And Van's on my board, so Van's on our board. Oh, sorry, Virginia.
Oh, that's okay. You mentioned that you've got 4 children here that you're trying to corral. Do you do any comparisons that you can share with us on what makes Bluffton attractive versus Port Royal, or Beaufort attractive versus Port Royal? Is there any? You probably don't like to do that, just like you don't like to tell one child that they're the best and the other one's the problem.
Yeah, they can figure that out themselves, your kids. But we don't necessarily do that. But if your group ever wanted us to do, kind of a look at, and we'd rather do, we'd probably go, we'd be happy to talk very candidly about what we get from prospects, what we get from companies, in terms of feedback. So we'd be happy to, we can tell you the unique strengths of each town. I think with Port Royal, its biggest impediment right now is, just figuring out where the product is and where you want us to locate businesses is one of our dilemmas right now. And then, and in your case, it might be a lot of redevelopment opportunities, whether, we're looking at some sites on Robert Smalls or out on Rebo Road. There are, when you get to the downtown area, it's very nice, but Rebo Road could use a kind of a facelift, if you will. I'm not trying to be mean. But it's very nice from Paris Island coming in, and then some of the area just needs, some of the investors to step up and move those sites. So if with public policy we can do that, or incentives, I will say, for Stoneworks, we actually worked with the county to give them a $100,000 job retention and creation grant. So I mean that gives people a warm feeling for your community when they get that kind of grant to create jobs, so it's, if we have sites in your community, we're absolutely confident we can market them, sell them, and see them be developed. So if your group can help us identify it, and I would say maybe at your January meeting, if Van and his staff are comfortable with it, we could discuss an executive session, if you do that kind of thing, the sites that we are looking at in detail. But we don't want to do that in public session because it can drive up the public cost of securing properties.
Van's typing.
That's why I was on mute.
Oh, dear. Okay, well, Roger, do you have any questions or concerns, input at this point?
No, I'm looking forward to getting this survey started. I think it's going to be something that's going to be very helpful.
I do too. Kevin? Anything you want to add?
No, I think I love that y'all are getting on it, and I think it's a good idea that, well, like I said, love to get the survey started in 2021, kind of giving some direction at the beginning of that year, and I would like to have that conversation, maybe like you said, in an executive session about what sites are in talks or of interest, you know.
And hopefully in the not too distant future, we're going to have the comprehensive plan completed as well, which is also going to give us some guidance on direction and how the town of Port Royal sees things moving forward. So between the survey, that, and some input on what's out there and what people are looking for, I think we can give the town some guidance, input, and hopefully increase the tax base with some good business.
Yeah, because that's one of the biggest things, you know, I've wanted to focus on, and I know council wants to focus on, is, you know, commercial development in Port Royal and some of those areas. I mean, I always tell people it's crazy when you tell them how us in the city of Beaufort have the exact same population, but they've got a budget. Their budget's like 3 times our budget, all due to commercial and within their municipality.
All right. Well, at this point, if I want to thank you, John and Charlie, for coming and making their time available to us, and look forward to your email with the outline for the survey, and continued communication, and
Yeah.
we'll get some things going.
Well, we'd be happy to do that anytime. And we don't need to talk this much if you invite us to a meeting. So we'll be happy to attend and just contribute with you all. So thank you. And, you know, that is our theme this week, is to improve our communications with the community. So we'll try to, it's only Tuesday. So we'll try to keep you informed. And Van, we'll probably just try to catch up with you and Linda on where we're going with the product report one last time. And I think we've been through it once before, but we're starting to fine tune that. So thank you all. Thanks for having us.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
all.
Thanks,
All right.
John. Charlie.
Bye-bye.
All right. Well, I think that was a very productive meeting, and if anybody has anything to add at this point.
No, I think that organization is a good resource. It will just,